Okay, it being 5:30, the agenda duly posted and a quorum present. I'll call this meeting of the Shelburne Selectboard to order. And welcome everyone for attending. So the first order of business is silencing my cell phone so it doesn't bing throughout the entire evening for you all. And then the second order of business is acceptance of the minutes of September 11th, 2023. Have folks had an opportunity to look at them and review them?
Yes, I have.
Andrew?
I would move that we accept.
Second.
Motions are made and seconded to accept the minutes of September 11th. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself as an aye. Motion is unanimous. Department liaison reports. Andrew, do you have anything to report, even though you don't have a department per se?
I'm not liaisoning with a department this year, but I did.
That's what I said. So
in regard to the Pocket Park project, which I am working on.
Yep.
I will be. I've set up a meeting with Carol DiLorenzo from the Bridge Gardening Group, and our tree warden Jim Richardson, and Greg Beck, who's an arborist in Conway with the what is the name of his group? Bartlett Landscaping or Arborist Group, and to look at the feasibility and cost of removing the trees that the bridge will not be keeping, and storing them up at Jim Richardson's place, and potentially replanting them on the Pocket Park if they survive. So I'm not sure. We still have some logistics to work our way through to see whether that project is feasible, but might be a way to save those trees and reuse them in the Pocket Park and wind up with some mature trees. I will also be meeting with Kay Cafasso and her students on Saturday. They are the ones who are going to be doing some garden designs for us that we talked about at the last meeting. And that will be the beginning of their project. And we should have a clearer timeline soon of what the bridge engineers are and the bridge committee are doing in terms of beginning the removal of the plant material on the bridge. So that will, I'll report on that at our next meeting, but we will likely find that the ARPA funding that we have been talking about for the bridge may be useful this fall in facilitating some of those projects that I've just described. So if we can put that on our agenda, perhaps at our next meeting, that would be good. And there's no word yet on the matching grant that I wrote. So unless Terry, you've heard something, I have not heard anything. So still waiting on that. That's all I have on the Pocket Park.
excellent. Rick, do you have anything to report?
The Veterans Center has finally found someone to take over the Veteran Services Officer position, and they have accepted the job. They will start pending the background checks. Other than that, just a reminder that the West County, all of the West County towns are served by the outreach at the Senior Center on the 4th Wednesday of the month, and that's coming up this week. So anyone who needs to refer anyone to that should attend. There's also a quarterly meeting of the district itself coming up on October 12th, which I will be attending as well. In Town Hall, I've been staying in touch with the collector and the treasurer. We're still working with Angel and Karen in the assessor's office on the addressed issues, but I think we've got a good plan in place that seems to be mitigating the bigger volume of issues we had earlier. Angel's on the agenda for another item, so we'll skip that. Last week I attended the assessors meeting, and it was a great group, very knowledgeable, including Karen for sure. And they helped clarify some questions for me on the 6 town-owned properties as to how they set the values, et cetera, and we can discuss that further on. In the police department, the pending changes in requirements from the state, the hierarchy being set for the merger of the 2 towns has led the chief to a project to fully flesh out and update the job description, and included in that some potential future job descriptions that are coming down the pike. And I would like to get Greg on the agenda for our next meeting where we have time, not necessarily if we have one at the special town meeting date, could be the following. It's not an urgent thing, but like to get him on the next one. It's pretty extensive. There's 11 new or updated job descriptions and 1 new policy. So, and that's it.
Bob?
Most excellent. Andrew, yes.
Sorry, I did have a couple of other things. I did remember I attended the Shelburne Falls Village Task Force meeting, which turned out to be possibly its final meeting. The task force has suspended operations for the time being. There is a new grant. We have not made headway on one of our key priorities, which was sort of trying to help identify and usher in a new successor organization to the business association. But we did make some headway on one of the other priorities, which was to find a home for the ShelburneFalls.com website, which used to be managed by the business association. And the nonprofit group West County Arts and Culture, which it has been slowly standing up, has agreed to take that project on. So although the task force does not own the website, we have recommended they do that in the interim until some successor to the business association is more formally established. There will be a grant that Jessica Atwood is working on, or there is a 3-town sort of downtown business association project that Terry has been participating in, that may sort of continue this work of identifying and developing a successor group, but that is going on under Jessica's leadership with that grant. So that's kind of where the village task force is at the moment. They're worked for about 18 months and have now sort of suspended things. I have also continued to advocate that the Shelburne Falls Cultural District use this year's allocation towards the Pocket Park, as they did that last year towards the Pocket Park in Buckland. So we'll see how that goes. That's kind of an ongoing conversation that I don't have any conclusion to at the moment. But that's all I've got.
Thank you. So the senior center is doing their thing, and they are starting up, or have a conversation cafe that happens in the evening, and they have over 30 people signed up for that, which is great, and shows activity for that they're doing is being greeted with good reception by the members. And also on Tuesdays they have an aerobic class being started. So if you're interested in going to an aerobics class, there'll be one at the senior center. I don't know much more other than there's going to be an aerobics class. The highway department, I don't know if I told you all, we do have the new blower that was voted on at the annual town meeting, and the leaf vac for the tractor. They're having problems finding a dealer. Well, we have a dealer, but the process of ordering one is a bit cumbersome apparently. So we're waiting on that. However, after like about a year and a half or so. Our new dump truck should be arriving next week. Mark just is waiting for, gonna contact Terry about insurance, adding it onto our insurance. He has the registration and plates, and we look forward to having it arrive. Other than that, the highway department has been working on finishing up Old Albany Road and Lucy Fisk Road that were paved. The paving came out very well, and talked to several of the people who live on the roads and are very pleased with that happening. I don't know if he's got any more paving projects planned for this year. I don't believe so, because we're kind of cutting it close on when the asphalt plants close. So that's kind of that in the highway world. It is now 5:40. Our first appointment is 5:45. If we go into old business, I think there's a couple that we can knock off real quick. John, you have item B is Cowell Gym HVAC project.
Hi, Bob. Yeah, everything is pretty much all set there. We're waiting for invoices. The last time I reported, we had both building and electrical inspections passed. I did add some hygrometers to all the rooms in the basement so that we can keep track of the humidity levels down there. And now is a question of whether or not when to turn it over to the heating modes. But other than that, we're in pretty good shape.
Excellent. Thank you, John, for working on that. Yep.
I just have a question for John. John, one thing that has been surfaced in the closeout of that project was a question about the sort of basketball durability of those heat pump covers or cases that are inside the gym. I remember when we first started talking about this project, we had talked about putting cages around them, and that does not seem to have become part of the project. Do you have confidence that those structures are durable and will withstand the stray basketball?
We spoke with the contractor about this. We believe that they can withstand an impact if they are warranted for 1 year. So we'll have a chance to figure out whether or not that's true or not. Terry has already asked the contractor, Jamrog from Turner's Falls, to look into providing cages if we do need them. Cages would have added additional costs to the project, which had gone up significantly from when we originally applied. So it was decided between Terry and the contractor not to add that during the initial phase.
Okay. Thanks. No, I just wanted to get an update on that, but thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else on that?
No.
All right, excellent. We still have it tabled for the West County Senior Service District. So when there's movement there, we'll be able to bring that forward. Sherry, relocation of the Veterans Memorial Rock. Terry?
Bob, that's scheduled for this Wednesday. If the weather is decent, they plan on relocating it then.
Excellent. All right. It's close enough to 5:45. We have our first appointment for the Franklin Land Trust, 47 acres of conservation restrictions for H.I. Hittor LLC, Catherine Smith, Patton Road, and Reynolds Road. We have our land trust person here with us tonight. Oh, okay.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all again. I haven't seen some of you in a while. My name is Elaine Peteroy, and I'm the conservation director at the Franklin Land Trust. And Kiki Smith is also on the Zoom, the owner of the property. So we have, for those of you who might not be familiar, this is the last part of the old Dean Farm up on the Patton District. It has 21 acres across the road that has an old farmhouse on it. And then this parcel is 47 acres that Kiki is looking to put under a conservation restriction and keeping out 5 acres for a developable house lot. I can share my screen if folks want to just be reminded of the maps or whatever works, or if you all have the copies of the maps.
Terry, do you have the ability to share the screen with her? That way everyone will be able to see it.
So the property, if for folks who are familiar, if you're going up Patton Road, and you can either stay straight on Reynolds Road to go down to the Wheelers. It's the old apple orchard and the sugar bush. It's all on the left side of the road, past the little schoolhouse on the corner of Patton. You guys are muted.
It's on the right side
I'm sorry, on the right side, sorry.
for the Wheelers.
Yep, and so it's basically mostly sugar bush, and then the 5 acre field is the nice part that is open now, that has the abandoned apple orchard. It goes all the way down to the Dragon Brook, the big wetland that's there that you can see. That is really a home to wildlife and is part of a cold water fisheries resource. So it does support native brook trout and is designated as that. So Kiki is looking to donate the conservation restriction on the 47 acres and keep out the house lot. The conservation restriction will then be donated to us. It allows for all the traditional uses of agriculture, forestry, hiking, hunting, and fishing. The landowner would retain their right of privacy, so they can still, just as it is now, allow people to come on the land, or maybe post it if they don't want people to come on the land. The land will remain on the tax rolls. The 5 acre house lot is not connected to it. There are some good farm soils on it, mostly near the edge of the orchard area, and then up north, strangely enough, towards the wetland. There's also rare species that use the pond and the wetland area. So protecting this, and particularly the sugar bush area, from further development is a good thing. And so, but all other uses are generally allowed in these conservation restrictions. We have other land in the area that's been protected, like Davenport Farm is conserved. There's some other farmland, and high ledges way up on the top. But so we're seeking, the last step in this is seeking the select board's approval, and then an eventual signature on this conservation restriction. I would ask though, we didn't get the conservation restriction back in time, but I still wanted to meet with you and just touch base, see if you have any questions about it. And then in a couple of weeks, hopefully when the state is final review, I will just bring that back for an official vote and signatures on the conservation restriction. But this restriction that I mailed you or emailed you is basically 99% what it will look like. There shouldn't be any changes, but we don't ask for a vote until we have approval to get the vote. So today, if you have questions, I know Andrew, you had stopped in at the office. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. So any questions about the project or the property, Kiki or myself, we can certainly answer for you.
Rick?
No, I had read it over. I'm familiar with the area, and I have no worries or concerns of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've looked at it and familiar with the property in that area. And I think it's a wonderful concept, and that area is needs protection and
It does.
conservation.
Yeah, it's under a lot of pressures right now. So we're thrilled
Yes.
to be able to kind of have a balance between conservation and a house lot.
Right.
So that really makes me happy. And I think if Kiki, if you have anything that you want to add as the owner of the property.
I would greatly appreciate your support on this. Charlie and I purchased this land with the understanding that we could do this, and to try to keep the land in the hands of local people who have been there for a few generations and are invested in the community. And so far, so good. So this is the last step.
Bob?
Yes, Andrew.
Just a couple of questions. One, Kiki, if you could just tell me a little bit more about how that works, like how the land is being used now and how you plan to keep it available to, I'm assuming you're suggesting local farmers and foresters and sugar makers. Is that what you're talking about?
Mostly neighbors. I have been pursued for several years by neighbors all around this property, eager to have it. Some to expand their land already. Most people in the area were looking for places where their children could live. And I don't know whether you noticed, but Laura Mitchell purchased the other side, the Dean family side. I'm very fond of Laura's both grandmothers who helped me enormously, her mother, and I haven't met Laura, but I was eager to find local families there. And I'm fortunate that I got good help from Kathy Roberts in how to set this up. So I wasn't deluged. And so I could keep the price simply so that I could just make back the money I've spent, and that's it. I'm not jacking up the price. It's just to turn it over.
You're talking about the 5-acre lot, right?
Well, this lot attached to this side would be either it could be sold separately from the sugar bush, or it could be sold and likely would be sold as a single piece. So if you buy the 5-acre house lot, you also purchase the sugar bush around it. Because frankly, if they're not owned, I don't, the point was as long as the land was separated into 2 units, I felt I needed to have something to warrant somebody investing in it without a big increase in the population up there. Does that answer your question?
Well, sort of, yeah. No, I was just curious whether you had any plans for using the restricted land that we're voting on for agricultural or sugaring or other uses that your neighboring farmers might use it for.
Right.
I don't, that was my question.
In the past, there hasn't been much use of the Dean house side. I did arrange a lot with the help of Elaine to have Norm Davenport have access to the sugar bush because it's adjacent to land that he already has. And so for $1 a year or something, it was set up so that he could do that. And my intention is that no matter who buys it from somebody up there, maybe it'll be Norm, I would strongly encourage whoever buys it to maintain that connection, say with Norm, who is very eager to do that.
Great.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That was my question. And Elaine, the other question I had is there any tax consequence to the town as a result of this creation of this easement?
So I believe that Kiki has this land under chapter 61. So the change is not likely to be much at all. Generally, conservation restriction lands stay similar to a chapter.
Okay.
And then the 5-acre house lot will be taxed now as a separate house lot.
So that will put on the
Right.
tax.
Yep.
Good.
And so
Okay.
that stays as that is, depending on the chapter that it stays in. It could be forestry, it could be chapter 61A, because the sugar bush is agriculture. So whatever the landowners deem it to be appropriate, that's where it will stay.
Great.
We're thrilled with, we think it's great, and for all the reasons of keeping the land available for agriculture, AKA the sugar bush, keeping it not developed into a house lot, which, believe it or not, someone could probably figure out how to put a house lot in the sugar bush, even though it has drainages and things. So we think this is just a great opportunity to protect that neighborhood. So,
Great.
yeah.
Those were my only questions, but thank you very much. And thank you, Kiki, for taking this initiative.
So I'll ask you all to not vote on this one until a couple of weeks when I come back, and then it can just be more, just officially voting on it, and I'll leave the seat conservation restriction with Terry for everyone to sign and notarize.
So voting on the finalized version.
Right, which should look exactly like the other one, but we don't mess around with signatures until we're ready to get them. So,
Right.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for
thank
zooming
you all
in
so much.
Thank you
and
very much.
and clarifying and answering the questions. And we look forward to seeing the final product.
Excellent. Thank
Great.
you all.
Bye.
Thank
Good night.
you. And it being close enough to 6 o'clock and Angel is present, we have an appointment with her regarding a request for a part-time assistant. Angel,
Yep.
would you like to go over what your thoughts are and why?
Sure. Well, the town, we need someone to be an assistant treasurer for the bank statements. Currently, I'm the only signer on the bank statements. So we need someone to join me on there. And then it would just be nice when bills are due, to have someone open all the mail that I get the week or so leading up to when taxes are due. I get quite a lot of mail. So it would just help me process the mail. And then if something ever happens to me, knock on wood, luckily nothing has yet, there's someone there who can already be trained on like how to do payroll, and can be my backup in case we ever need it.
Okay. Andrew or Rick, any questions?
Didn't the previous, or maybe we've had an assistant in this position before, correct?
Correct. Maureen had someone when
Yes.
she was
I thought
collector.
so.
Yep.
And so, Angel, your proposal is to use the funds that are already allocated for this purpose
Correct.
to hire somebody.
Yep.
Okay, and pay them for whatever number of hours can fit within that budget.
Correct. I don't think it's going to be a ton of hours. I'm in taxes for this fiscal year. We have 3 more due dates for real estate and maybe help with the commitment one for excise. So 4 more times to open a lot of envelopes. So maybe 8 hours for each one, maybe 16. I'm not sure. So it wouldn't really be a ton of hours.
So that's more like almost like a stipended position or something, not so much an employee, is it? Am I right about that or no?
I would still see it as an employee. They're coming into work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I mean,
you've
the reason
requested,
I'm sorry, the reason I ask is just that it sounded like you had somebody identified who might want to do this job. But my question was, given the small number of hours, is that a position we would have to post or not?
I was under the impression it doesn't have to be posted because Mass General Law states that, I think it states that I can pick someone, but you guys have to approve it. I'd have to look it up and find the law. I don't remember exactly what it says word for word, but I think that's what it says.
Jerry, do you have any input on that one?
I do know that Maureen selected the individual that she chose to work in her office. So I believe that what Angel has stated is true.
Okay, thank you. And we do have the funds enough to cover for 16 hours a week.
It wouldn't be a week, it would just be those 5 times when taxes are due, when there's a lot of mail.
Okay,
So as needed.
Yeah, it's
As
gonna be
needed.
as needed. This person recently retired, so she's not looking to work a lot of hours.
okay. And I don't know much about your person that you've recommended. Other than, what you're provided here.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you're satisfied with her qualifications and ability to do the job.
Yes.
All
Seems
right.
to have extensive experience in in your office domain.
Yep.
One other question, given that this is all within the treasurer's department, does this person need to be bonded?
Yeah, she'll need to be bonded.
Okay.
All right. With that, I believe this should require a vote for allowing to hire a assistant treasurer collector. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Or second.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded
Okay.
to hire a part-time assistant treasurer and collector. And would you like to go with Angel's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm fine with that.
Okay, very good. All that said and done, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call this matter to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
myself is an aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Angel.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a bunch of time till our next appointment, which is at 6:15. So let's see what else we can knock off on the item E under old business. Is Community Preservation Act Committee. Waiting for the Attorney General's approval. Have we heard any movement on that, Terry?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Terry, have you gotten any further expressions of interest in serving on that committee?
I received one email today.
From,
I can't tell you off the top of my head because it's
Okay.
not on tonight's agenda, but I believe I forwarded it to you, everyone. If not, it'll be on the next agenda.
Okay.
okay,
It was someone that you had recommended, Andrew.
okay.
All right. We'll jump up to item A, streetlight reappointment of a streetlight committee and review of the Real Team Energy proposal for inventory assessment and existing lights. So moving with that, when I made the suggestion, I had a couple of people in mind to do that, and I hadn't come up with a citizen at large. So member from the select board, finance committee member, energy committee member, and citizen at large. And I mentioned John Walsh. He didn't seem to go running away as a resident, kind of an expert to help as well. And then finance committee, they'd be appointing whom they would like. We received a request from Jeff Botner for joining, and I think that's a good good fit for the committee. And I would like to offer Lori Wheeler's name for the citizen at large. She lives in the village and she has a lot of just general knowledge and kind of a overall perspective view, which is good, to provide feedback from the village. So those are who I was had in mind. And as for the select board position, I'd be happy to do it, or Rick, if you'd like to do it. But that's kind of where I'm at. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Mary has her hand up there.
Oh, Terry, I'm sorry, yes.
We had three citizens, Paul Hollings, Doug Engel, and Lori Wheeler, who expressed interest in serving. I believe I circulated each of those letters to each of you.
Yep. So thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that I like the idea of yourself serving on that as the representative and chair of the select board. Jeff Botner definitely is interested. I think he's a great candidate. And hopefully John will step up because he brings an expertise that no one else has. And I think Laura Wheeler is a terrific choice. That's my thoughts.
Andrew?
Well, Doug Engel and Paul Hollings are both people who had volunteered previously to serve to assist Terry should we go to an own your own lights model. So I think they're Doug is already serving on the energy committee, so I think he's got some skin in the game in that regard. So it would be, I think, drawing on their interest and enthusiasm would be a good thing.
Yeah, that's valid. But the only thing I was concerned about is having two members of the energy committee on the streetlight committee, and it could get open meeting law concerns and other things like that during discussion and conversation.
Okay. That does trigger open meeting law issues there?
It could.
Mhm.
And there's two members. How many are on the energy? 5?
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, I think Jeff has been played a key role in the streetlight development process for the Energy Committee. And I would think he and Tom are pretty neck and neck in knowledgeability of what they've done to date, which is important to bring to that committee. And Doug Engel, I don't know him, but I think he's only been on maybe a month and a half or something, so he didn't have a lot of skin in the game in the, as you put it, in the development of the streetlight process. But I think if we're going to have one from the Energy Committee, Jeff would be the most knowledgeable for sure.
Yeah, I'm in agreement about that. Jeff's got his hand up.
Yeah, Jeff.
Hi, I think Doug is actually stepping down from the Energy Committee and he's going to be replaced on Thursday. So he could kind of come in as a citizen if you wanted to see it that way. And I think he'd be a great addition because he has a lot of knowledge about lights and stuff too. So really,
One question,
Sure.
Is this group that you're putting together a committee or a working group?
I would say it would be a committee, given the fact that we're going to be making making decisions, recommendations to the board.
I guess, I mean, my sense of a committee is it's more of a standing body of the town, and a working group or a task force is a group that's assembled for a particular purpose for a particular period of time.
I just got a text from Lori Wheeler who says she has a bad connection, so she can't respond. And I'm texting her back saying, you can text to me and I can give her a response verbatim from the text message.
Terry's got her hand up, Bob.
Terry,
If it goes to town meeting and town-owned streetlights are approved, it would be a long-standing committee, I would assume.
Is that what we're
I-
creating, though? Is a committee that will have an ongoing life, or one that's designed just to bring a recommendation to town meeting? I'm just trying to clarify what it is we're doing here.
My impression that it would be long-term, because the most important role for it would be if it does get passed at town meeting, that's when the real work of that committee would begin. So,
and also there'd be have to have someone as a point person for contacting if a light's out, or overseeing, as Rick was saying, overseeing the actual transition to
Right.
owned streetlights.
Okay, so that's the reason that I asked that is that those two people that I mentioned, Doug Engel and Paul Hollings, are people who actually signed up for that long-term project. But I think Paul has also put his name in the hat for the CPA group, so he may not be the best candidate for this role since you can't do both. But Doug Engel seems like he would be a good choice too, who has expressed interest, for some time now.
Yes, but Lori also expressed interest for long-term, and she just texted me. Can there be more? Let me get back to Lori's. Her question is, can you have more than one citizen at large?
I think 5's a good number personally. It makes the quorum easier to meet. You can't have a tie in a vote.
Yeah.
Bob, should we ask Doug to speak? He is on the call.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, hello. This is Doug. So yes, I did express an interest in being part of the membership of this committee. I do have a vested interest in how these lights roll out, as I have ones obviously straight across the street from me. So that does impact my interest in having the best solution for the community. I have only been with the committee for 3 months, I think, actually, is how long I've been with the Energy Committee. So I'm more than happy to serve. If you want just one individual from the committee, I think Jeff obviously is also an excellent choice. He does have a lot of skin in the game, been involved in the process for quite some time. So yeah, I am interested. Ultimately, it is up to you as to how that community gets formed.
John?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. It was not my intention to sign up for a long-term committee. With my experience in doing RFPs and reviewing proposals, I was really more interested in being involved in the initial process of choosing who would and how that would be implemented, and not being involved in a day-to-day operation after the decision has been made.
After,
Valid point. Thank you for clarification. Rick, you had something?
yeah, John, did you mean you were willing to take it up to town meeting and not during, if it gets voted through, not during the initial, what was it, projected 6-8 months for the process to be done?
No, I would be willing to stay on through that process. It's after the implementation period is completed. I'm
The
not
administration
interested
aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
being involved in it.
Yeah. Well, people can step down at whatever point they are. So I would love it if you would take it, the position to go through that time period of getting the installation, should that pass at town meeting, and then step down and we can fill the hole later.
Yeah, I'm agreeable to that.
All right, I'm going to pause the meeting, this discussion, because we have a 6:15 appointment with Mr. Joe Ray regarding proposed one-day liquor license. Joe, yep, hi, there you are.
Yeah, good evening.
Would you like to kind of give an overview of what you're looking for?
Yes, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, we're looking for the one-day liquor license so that we can have serve outside at the rear of the parking lot area, which adjoins the deck and the patio, and it's for a benefit.
So it's not like in a controlled area that's fenced off. It's just going to be in the parking lot area.
I would have a section that's roped off across the parking lot, so there would be like a line.
Okay. And let me see if I've got it, but so I can, what was the date that you were looking for, and for
It's
how long?
October 1st, which is this Sunday. And it's just in the afternoon, probably from like noon to 6. It really wouldn't get going until about 2 o'clock, 2 to 6 o'clock would be the end time.
Now, clarification question to Terry. Seeing how Joe already has a liquor license, does it apply to the outside surrounding area or just the building?
The liquor license for Joe's establishment is only for the interior of the building and the 2 patio areas as described and approved by ABCC. I did check with them for this event, and obtaining a one-day liquor license makes it possible for him to utilize a roped off area of his parking lot. It has to be handled as a separate event with a separate bar area. And I would just check with your insurer, Joe, to make sure liability insurance is a requirement. And I know that you already carry a policy for the restaurant. I would just check with them to see whether or not you need a rider for this specific event.
Yeah, I can look into that tomorrow.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Gentlemen, do you have questions?
Joe, did this event happen last year too, the benefit that this is supporting
This will be a first time to this establishment
for you?
for here, yes.
Yeah, but the benefit has been held.
The benefit has gone on for many years. It's different people putting it on now. It used to end up at Mohawk Park. It starts in North Adams at Bow Field, the agricultural field. And it has been part of like the fall parade out of North Adams for years. People line up in the streets to watch the motorcycles go by all the way up to Savoy and Worthington, Cummington. And they used to end up at Mohawk Park, used to be a regular spot until they closed. And the people that were putting it on got older and it was too much work for them. A new committee, the Legion Riders, which is the American Legion clubs, are sponsoring this.
Okay.
So now that you mentioned that it was used to end up at Mohawk Park, I've been involved in getting these motorcycles out onto Route 2 coming off of 112. And they're probably close to 1,000 or more. You can actually feel them coming just because of the low rumble of all the machines. Do you have enough parking for that?
Well, they say that the last couple of years it is downsized by far, and they're expecting 150 to 200 motorcycles is what the Legion Riders have been over here regularly. They were here just this past Sunday. It's a much smaller event than they used to have.
Okay. And do you think a police detail is necessary because coming off of Route 2 and, those areas of navigation and shutting down Maple Street, South Maple to get people in. It's a major event in terms of, like, granted that you said downsizing, but 150, 200 motorcycles riding in a pack, still is pretty impressive.
Yes, and I have spoke with Chief Bardwell and Chief Bedravich about both happenings as far as in both towns. And they have supported it as far as being a lot of self-sufficient, because a lot of the bikers do direct the traffic at the intersections and stuff. But if to clarify, if needed, I would ask both of the departments if they wanted to participate as far as stopping traffic so that they could pull in and pull out at different times at different intersections.
Yeah. As they usually come down 112, circle around, and then they would take a right onto Route 2 to head up to the park. But now they'll be taking a left heading over to your place. And that's where one of the big details is usually needed, because trying to shut down Route 2 without some lights can be pretty challenging.
They were actually talking about coming down North Street as part of a slow parade down through town and across the bridge and up through town.
Okay. Andrew?
I was just wanting to hear a little bit more about, you said something about shutting down Maple Street. Is that actually part of the proposal to close Maple Street?
Well, if they were
No.
coming off of Route 2 to put somebody at the end of Maple, South Maple, while everyone goes into the parking lots, and then opening it back up.
Oh, that's more like a parade permit sort of deal where you just are for a short period for traffic purposes are stopping traffic to allow a turn or something.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so I have no problem with the liquor license, but I would strongly recommend talking to Chief Bardwell, in my opinion, about 112 in the Route 2 intersection, or if you're going down North Street into the center of town, you might want some coverage on the Buckland side, because those intersections all kind of merge together.
Yes.
That would be my biggest suggestion, is because it's going to be a busy weekend. It's going to be beginning of the fall, and there's still a lot of tourists coming out more and more. So just kind of a random thought there.
What day are we talking about here?
This Sunday.
Sunday.
This coming Sunday. Okay.
Yeah. So any other questions or about, that was my concern about the parking and the motorcycles coming through town, but this is more for the liquor license. So is there any other questions or concerns that we can bring the matter to a vote for?
Sure you'll, Joe, I'm sure you'll hear a lot of people who are not keen on huge amounts of motorcycle noise, but there you have it.
Yeah.
And it's usually a very lasts for 5 minutes at the most with the bikes going by, so it's not a long term, or it's going to be.
Okay, Patricia, you have a hand up?
Can you tell me the hours of this? I'd like to avoid being in town.
It's approximately like 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock would be over.
Okay,
But the motorcycles would only be passing through at one time as a large group, and then it would be haphazard from there, from what I would gather.
Approximately 1:30, they'd be coming through town. 1:30, 2 o'clock.
so when
And
you
then
said,
Go ahead.
what is the route they're gonna be taking again?
112
North Street.
down North Street, across the bridge, and up Maple Street.
Okay,
Bridge Street to South Maple.
okay, thank you.
And as they leave, like I said, it's just going to be haphazard depending upon on their schedules and things. So thoughts, concerns?
No, I think if you're working with Greg and with folks, you know, I mean, I guess Greg is handling both sides of the river now. So if you're working with him on traffic control, you know, you should be able to get through your group of 150 bikes, you know.
All right. So back to the liquor license. Is there a motion to approve the one-day liquor license for October 1st?
I would move the approval of the license.
Second,
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call this matter to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion passes unanimously.
I'd like to thank the select board for this.
Well, you're
Thank-
welcome. I wish you good luck on the event, and if it starts growing even more, you know, that's good. We'll just have to do a little bit more coordinating.
Yes, yes. Maybe I'll open the drive-in back up.
There you go. All righty. So our next appointment was the official Mohawk Trail of Regional School District officials to review proposed digital language changes within the Select Board and Finance Committee. I know the Finance Committee is here. I see Willow's here. Martha's here. So with all that fun stuff, let's dive into this. Martha or Willow, would you like to present the information?
I think Jason's going to start. He's with the Finance Committee.
Oh, okay. That's why I didn't see him. Jason, are you there at the Finance Committee?
Muted right now.
Yeah, you're muted. Hello.
We may have to turn it back up.
All right.
You're back. You're back on.
Are we good?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Thank
We had muted for a minute. So we're next on the agenda, I assume. I guess I kind of assumed that there might be some questions and concerns from the board, you know, the select board and finance committee. We've kind of talked about it in separate meeting. You guys have as well. This is a good time for us all to come together. I'll do a real brief intro, and then it seems like moving right into questions would make sense. You know, these warrant articles that are presented are the same wording and everything as the ones that were at the presented in the spring. It was approved by 5 of the 8 towns and defeated by Heath and Shelburne, and tabled in Plainfield. Both Heath and Plainfield have had conversations about, you know, right when Plainfield did it, they were not objecting to having a special town meeting about it. They kind of wanted more time, a lot like Shelburne did. Felt like it was kind of dropped on them last minute, which, you know, we agree it was. We were trying to get it through, you know, just to move ahead. We talked about it at length in subcommittee meetings, and it just seemed like a matter of fairness and felt like it would not have a lot of controversy. It's a fair way, a common way to count kids. So that's why it was, you know, we'll call it pushed through a little quick. Now people have had time to digest it, so good time to get it back on special town meeting. It was to move forward. It would have to be voted on by the remaining 3 towns, approved by the remaining 3 towns by the end of this year. Otherwise, it will have to go back to all 8 towns. So that's why the timing seems perfect right now. You know, I've had previous meeting with Finance Committee to discuss some of the concerns, not that they've been alleviated, but at least we're starting to work through the process. But, you know, the bottom line is it's a matter of fairness. The towns should be responsible for the kids that reside in their towns. And the way our, you know, regional agreement was written prior to school choice and charter and all the different ways kids, you know, out of district special ed students. The current agreement does not account for those kids correctly. DESE generally uses what's foundation enrollment, which is what we're proposing to move towards. Most regional districts do the same because it's a nice, clean way to count kids and, you know, have it be fair to all towns. I think, you know, this has been discussed at length, you know, different times. So I guess I'd open it back up to Martha or Cheryl, if you have anything to add that I didn't hit on, and probably just makes sense to move into questions if you have them at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm fine if we're happy to answer any questions or concerns that folks might have about the amendments.
Andrew.
I'm mainly interested in hearing whether or not the Finance Committee supports this. I do support it. My main objection at town meeting was that we're not giving our citizens enough time to learn about this and get informed. So I think we've done that and are doing it. And I have no objection personally to bringing this to the special town meeting, but I would strongly hope that we have the support of our Finance Committee and Select Board.
The Finance Committee, Jay Redinger here, the Finance Committee continues to have a concern about a change in language that in the original document does not include maintenance as a capital expense, and in the new document, the proposed document, proposed agreement counts capital or counts maintenance as a capital expense. There's a lot of discussion to be had around that and the implications of that and what look like possible safeguards against that, but we've not finished that discussion. And it's an important discussion because in the agreement, in the original agreement and in the subsequent agreement, the schools, the towns with schools in them are responsible for those schools, and they're responsible for the maintenance, the district is responsible for the maintenance. The town is responsible for the capital costs of those. And so if there's able to be a shift between maintenance cost to capital cost, that has serious implications for any town that has responsibility for a school building. And so we're not yet comfortable. Is that fair?
Maybe our superintendent and school
Sure.
board chair can speak to those concerns.
Jay,
Yeah.
Cheryl, I'm just, can you clarify what the concern would be?
I just said what the concern was, that a town that has a school building could be responsible for capital costs, which in fact are maintenance costs.
So Cheryl, if you don't mind, Jay, the old wording said in the capital cost section said the cost of remodeling or making extraordinary repairs to a school building, went on with some examples. The new wording numbers things differently. So under capital cost B2, instead of extraordinary maintenance, 2 just reads maintaining, comma, or making substantial repairs to, comma, an existing school building or buildings. So
Okay.
the concern is that, does that, and I agree with the concern. I think we have workarounds. We've talked about auditors and things that would catch this and not like it. But I agree with not loving the wording where it just says maintaining, comma, because that could
Okay.
mean changing the filter on the, water bubbler, or whatever.
Right. So let me, a couple of things. You as the towns, put the safety, the security, the buildings under the purview of the superintendent. So it's my responsibility with my staff to make sure that school buildings are safe, that they are clean, that they are well maintained, and that any capital projects that need to get done are brought to the building subcommittee, the budget subcommittee, and then out to the town. So we have school committee policy that defines that. We have a policy called Facilities Developmental Goal. And at the end of that policy, it states that facilities must be maintained through preventative maintenance programs, scheduled routine cleaning, and completion of needed repairs in a timely manner. So I guess what I'm thinking is, if you're concerned that the district would not maintain buildings so that then they could rise to the level of a capital expense, we can't do that by this policy. I wouldn't do it. It's immoral, it's unsafe. But we have that policy, certainly as a guardrail. I think another thing to think about is our policy for our business administrator in the fiscal accounting and reporting procedures policy. The business administrator is required to periodically visit and inspect each school with the director of facilities, and to have firsthand knowledge of the conditions of schools, and shall give particular attention to the physical condition and the state of maintenance of the various school buildings. And the business administrator and director of facilities shall inform the superintendent of their findings of the condition of the school buildings, and the superintendent shall have authority to take lawful measures to abate nuisances and condemn school buildings if they're not safe, which are not fit and sanitary and endanger the health and safety of pupils. So again, I think the policy of how we maintain buildings and what the building facilities director and business administrators roles are prevent us from ignoring on a routine basis maintenance and repair to the degree that you would then see a capital expense. Mass general law also has protection for school buildings. So if the district were to purposefully delay any maintenance, we would be certainly open to liability. As a district, I would never do that. Any superintendent would never do that. But we would not be in compliance with our policy. We would not be in compliance with state law, and we would not be in compliance with federal guidelines if we were to purposefully ignore maintenance. Now, with that being said, when I arrived, the district had come out of a very long period of very tight budgets, and my finance committee in Shelburne, I know you're aware of this, because you have, along with the other 8 town finance committees, really struggled with how do we fund the schools in a regional district like Mohawk Trail, where there's declining enrollment, and the costs are higher in these rural districts that just spread out over so many geographic miles. In the period prior to myself coming, there has been deferred maintenance, but it's been very clear that it's been deferred, and there's been a long-term plan for that maintenance to occur. And when I arrived, the school committee brought together a group to identify those outstanding maintenance items and make the changes and the corrections that needed to be made. Since then, you've seen in our budget that we have put in for maintenance what the director of facilities requests have been. So we've identified the plan and we are funding now the maintenance plan that we're required to do.
Can I respond to that?
Certainly.
With Jay Redinger again, with all due respect, a state law that you, by your own admission, would not enforce doesn't have a lot of teeth. And this is a legal document amongst 8 towns about how the schools will operate, as opposed to an internal policy that can be changed by a simple vote of the school committee. So.
Well, yeah, Jay, I certainly understand what you're saying.
Not finished yet.
Sorry.
We're not, I'm not sure we're as comfortable with a internal school district policy that can be changed by that vote as we are with a legal document that all 8 towns agree to. I'm through.
Thanks, Jay. I apologize for interrupting. I think I would say to that, anybody on the school committee would say 16-member vote is not a simple thing. So the idea that, you know, we could just change a policy there's a process for that policy to be changed. It starts with the policy subcommittee. It's approved potentially at that policy subcommittee. Then it gets moved to the full school committee for approval. So the policy changing is not something that is done without, you know, deep regard for its impact and the functioning of the district.
And if I can just.
Okay.
I'll comment on this, but
yeah, I know, Martha.
it seems to me that most of the policies are adopted on the consent agenda as opposed to by, I mean, even, you know, sure, the board reads them and can object to that and bring each one up individually, but in my experience, they're done on the consent agenda. So it's a less rigorous change than coming to all 8 towns for town meetings. The end of my.
Yeah, Martha had her hand up first.
Go ahead, Martha.
I was just going to say, the real approval process is that none of our capital requests can be approved before the town votes on them. They bring them to the building subcommittee and the budget subcommittee. Those have to approve, the school committee has to approve, and then we bring them to the towns. If you think there's something in there that is not capital and should be paid for out of the operating budget, then we work with the towns, and we always have, as we're putting together these capital requests. You ask us about it and ask us to remove it. And you know, back in 2015, 2016, Shelburne had significant problems with some capital requests that we had at BSE. And we worked with Shelburne then on those issues. We had issues with Coleraine not wanting a particular item in the capital request that just was done a couple of years ago. We pulled that out. So the real authority here about whether something is, if you think there's something operating that's in our capital budget and ought to be in the operating budget, you vote it down if we can't work it out. But we have always been able, I think, to work it out with the towns.
Bob, may I respond to that? I lied earlier.
You lied. Oh my God.
Yeah, I said I wouldn't say anything more, but the issue is not that something on the capital budget would get slid through on the capital budget. The issue is that maintenance items could be charged to capital.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. They can't be charged to capital. Anything that we put into a capital request has to be approved by the towns. We can't just all of a sudden say, here's $10,000 that we're going to charge the Shelburne and Buckland. It has to be approved by the towns.
Yes.
I'm still struggling to understand, even if this scenario were to take place, how would it materially change the fortunes of Shelburne or Buckland in the management of our elementary school? We pay the maintenance costs and we pay the capital costs. So even if they get mixed up, we're still paying the same costs.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
I don't know. If I could answer that, you
Yep.
don't pay the maintenance now because it's part of the operating, which gets spread amongst the 8 towns. Because that's what it takes to operate the district is the concern. And then if a maintenance item fell into a capital
Oh, okay.
request, it would only get paid for by Buckland and Shelburne at the Buckland EBSE. So that's the concern but Martha's point is right. It doesn't let the district do anything on a day-to-day basis. It still has to go into a capital request. There's no capital operating budget that can get just used and depleted. It would have to go into a capital request, then get voted on by the appropriate towns. And that would be the opportunity to dispute this is a maintenance item and shouldn't be in this request. So although I agree with not liking the wording and wish the wording was different, to move this through, we don't have the opportunity to alter it without a full revote of all the towns. And it seems like, there's other safeguards, there's stuff that could happen, more rigorous policies written. I agree, with the concern that leaves it to school committee to change it midterm without towns, but the auditors would look at, big maintenance stuff, and I think there's a lot of, it's unfortunate that it's written the way it is, but I don't think it changes the meat of the article or is worthy of, just because of it.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Just wondering if we could move at special town meeting to approve this set of articles and add on condition that the school district brings back language to correct the maintenance issue at town meeting. Would that still be a valid vote of 8 towns if we added that proviso, or should we?
I don't believe it would be a valid vote because the other towns have already approved the language as written. So we're
Okay.
working on the language that is presented to us. And if we changed ours, it would still nullify the vote.
I'm not suggesting we change ours. I'm just only saying that we enjoin the school committee to come back with new language at special town meeting.
Well, then you were gonna ask for another 8-town vote on new language. Why don't we just ask for another 8-town vote on the whole thing?
Yes.
If you're asking if we would bring back another amendment to make this change, we would be happy to do that, whether it's and most other towns aren't going to take up a 2-word change to an amendment to the regional agreement at a special town meeting. We would be happy to bring a warrant to that effect to the annual town meetings next spring if that solves this issue, because this shouldn't be a stumbling block. We will do that if you would like us to do that. We don't have any problem doing that. The real issue here is how we're going to assess towns going forward for the major operating assessments that you all are paying. And what we're trying to do is make that more fair. So this is I understand that this is of concern. I would be happy to pledge to you right now that we will make an article that changes that. We will work with you on the wording. We will make an article that changes that if that's what is required to move this forward and to give the 5 towns that have voted not have to do the whole thing all over again.
I would be willing to accept that pledge and move forward. I'm curious how the finance committee feels about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
A couple things. Number one, I don't understand it, and the discussions we've been having here now that basically give us assurances that maintenance wouldn't become a capital item and so forth. I don't understand why the wording was even changed in that article, in that section of the agreement. You know, this is being presented to us as a change of the agreement for the way we count students to count their assessments. And now we're stuck on other wording that has nothing to do with how we're counting our students. And the one way I see it, the concept of the capital definition in the original, I say original, previous agreement was that it made new construction, new additions, major remodels, and extraordinary repairs responsibility of the towns who own the building. Why are we changing it to include maintenance now? Was there a need to change? Why was this word put in there? Why did we even address that capital definition? The original definition, the original formers of the district wanted it make sure that the brick and mortar schools were owned by the towns, and capital costs, which are additions, major remodels of what remained responsibilities of the town. Why do we need to change that?
I can only tell you that it was not an intentional change. As we were doing this back and forth with DESE between February, March, and April, it went through 5, 6, 7 different revisions. I can't tell you when that particular wording got changed. I can only tell you that it was not intentional at all. So the fact that it's there, I can't tell you how it happened. I can only tell you it was not intentional, and we will fix it.
Okay, then my question then would be, okay, will you give us assurance that you will come to the annual town meeting next year to replace the wording with the original wording?
We will come to with it, whatever wording we can agree with you guys on that you would like us to have. That is long, within reason, yes. So we add extraordinary back. If that solves the issue, we'll add extraordinary back. If that doesn't solve the issue and you have a different set of words that you would prefer, then
the words we prefer, I think, are the words that are already there.
okay. If that's what you want, then yes, we can do that, and we will do that.
So I was saying to the room here, unless DESE was the one that changed those wordings, and they're not going to improve the old wording because they didn't like the term extraordinary or something. So I think the bottom line is she's given you.
It never came up in conversation. I don't
we
know can
where
it
work
got
with it. We can't guarantee it'll be the same wording, but we can, because DESE has final approval. Like
we can get the same wording if we vote no, vote this down.
Right.
If we do a special town meeting and vote no, we'll get the wording where it was. We'll keep the same wording,
And they may never let us change the other part, because if this was put in by them,
How can
then
they put it in our agreement?
because it goes back and forth between the lawyers, us, and DESE to come up with wording they'll agree with. Nobody really knows when this changed, but I'm just saying there's a chance that DESE said this wording is how most people describe capital, and there was probably no objection by the lawyer, or I'm totally making this up, but I'm just saying I don't want this room to agree that we're gonna go back to this old wording if there's a reason that DESE says no, it should be worded this way. I think the intent is that, we're willing to work with you and whatever other towns are concerned with it, and come up with, wording that's good, that's as close, if not exactly this. I don't want to in the room commit to doing wording that DESE's not going to approve.
Rick, you've been listening to all this. What's your thoughts?
Obviously a complicated issue, and good give and take on both sides. I think my role in this would be a matter of supporting it to go forward, since we can't change it, to the special town meeting and see what they do.
Okay. In listening to all this, I mean, the urgency of counting students and when they're counted, for my understanding, there is no consideration for homeschooled students that would add to that total. Is that correct?
That is correct. Or vocational students. It's only Mohawk Trail, regular public, regular public school students. But that it would include choice, charter, and special education students who are educated off campus. Now those aren't counted. No, they're in no one's enrollment, which means that everyone pays for everyone's.
Okay. And I understand the reasoning of how, with your example of the town of Holly, where they only have 9 students, they could just kind of choice them out and then they wouldn't have any role in this. But it seems slightly complicated in terms of that, and unfair. So that portion does make sense in regards to the counting of the students and the overall look at the total student body. But coming down to the finance or committee's concerned about the changing of wording, I'm just sitting here scratching my head, is like that wording was changed and no one really knows when it was put in. That's concerning to me, that this dialogue came back and forth. And was there an opportunity for the school committee to look at those changes at one point or highlighted? Or if it's given, it was just like one word, it was just kind of glossed over.
School committee reviewed and voted to approve, as did the budget subcommittee, the amendments to the regional agreement prior to their being given to DESE. And again, at the end, when we passed the final warrant articles that we would submit to the town. So yes, the school committee did look at that. With nobody, I don't know that there was ever any discussion of that particular word.
Were you given a list of what was changed from that was submitted to DESE once they've reviewed it?
We put together a broad red line. Again, it wasn't because of if we'd redlined every single change, it would have been as complicated as the warrant article itself. So again, I don't think that word was picked up in a red line, and I don't think there was ever any specific discussion of it. Again, I'm happy to try and change that. I really hope that this doesn't derail this entire amendment, because we can fix that. We can't fix it before Shelburne would vote at a special town meeting, but we can fix it or attempt to fix it. Now, there may be other towns that aren't worried about it or don't see any need to fix it, but I don't think this would be a problem for people to approve. But I just hope that it's not allowed to stop this right now, when we've got 5 towns who have voted, the 6th town who's expressed support for it, but wanted additional information. And there's just 2 towns that are now considering the special town meeting.
Andrew had the first.
Right. Just 2 questions, one for finance and one for Martha and Cheryl. I guess Martha and Cheryl, if Shelburne were to defeat this at a special town meeting, can it be brought back in the spring to all 8 towns, or is there some restriction on that?
It can be brought back and would be brought back to all 8 towns.
Okay, no, that was the only question I had, was a technical one.
Yep.
And to the finance committee, I guess my question about the concern, since the school district is pledging to fix this typo or problem with the word maintenance, my question to you is, how realistic is the concern that we will somehow be saddled with maintenance costs that get slipped into the capital budget? Because that does not seem like a real possibility to me. Like, we would have to be really asleep at the switch to let that go through town meeting.
Andrew,
Yeah,
you look at the capital request that we received, was it 2 years ago that we voted on at town meeting? Most of the items on that were deferred maintenance. And that was voted through as capital.
well, deferred maintenance can often be called extraordinary maintenance, which is probably why it got voted through.
Extraordinary maintenance, definition, in my opinion anyways, is a roof, a boiler, something like that, not painting the lines in the parking lot, things of that sort. You know, it's the long list, most of it was deferred maintenance.
I would disagree with that since I was on that committee. We ruled out a whole bunch of things that fell below what we considered a dollar amount threshold. And, you know, and ruled out other things that certain towns didn't want done. Coleraine had a few things they wanted pulled out of that. I don't think that is at all a norm. And that was in itself extraordinary to do such an in-depth dive, you know, projecting 10 years out. That was kind of a one-off situation anyway. And having been on that committee, we ruled a lot of things out.
You know, still, I'm just sitting here thinking with all this discussion about how this maintenance could never get into the capital budget. Why do we need to add the word into the capital definition then? Why was
But
it
Jim, I guess my question back to you is, if that did in fact happen the way you described, then it happened under the language you're suggesting we go back to.
Exactly.
So even if we do go back to that language, we will still be naked and afraid before the almighty school committee, and we will be rolled over once again.
Exactly.
So how is it we're what we're describing here is kind of moot.
We're making it legal.
Okay, so we get to roll ourselves legally as opposed to illegally. I'm just a little bit mystified, Jim, still, about how we're getting tangled up in this.
My question, I gotta go back to my initial question. Why did that word even get put in there?
It sounds like it was a mistake.
Bob?
Yep.
In response to your question, when we first got the document, and going through it, I saw this maintenance issue come up because it's a particular area of expertise, and so I picked it out pretty quickly. I asked for a red line, which is the document that you referred to, which would have all of the changes. And while some people may think that's too complex, I don't think they're that complex, and it makes it very easy to see what is changed and what hasn't changed. I don't know that there aren't other things in here that have been changed, other language that's been changed that may be more or less important than that word maintenance. Because not being able to get a red line, I decided not to go through 33 pages with a fine-tooth comb. And so having found that one, I stopped there.
Hey, there's a couple people that have their hands up. Bill, and then Martha.
Thank you. Those of you that don't know me, I'm Bill Latoy, the business administrator. So I think something that's important to note here also is the transparency and the teamwork that's happening right now. We have a lot more people coming to our finance committee meetings. We're being open and we're being transparent. We're giving you the information ahead of time. So none of this should be an issue, because if we'll bring this up at our business finance subcommittee meetings for the school committee, and you know, there's plenty of people from each town that are there. You know, when we bring it to school committee and when we bring it forward and it's in the reports, and we've really worked hard. I've really worked hard in the last year and a half to build this communication and to build this dialogue so that we're informing everybody up front and so that we're giving you that information. And if something comes up, we're willing to have those conversations. So, you know, I just want to point that out, that I believe in, you know, the short time that I've been here, and just before I started, since Cheryl's been here, the dialogue and communication, I think, has increased, you know, a lot.
Thank you, Martha.
I just wanted to say that the capital markets, the capital planning group that put together the latest capital request, which it was felt had a lot of maintenance items in it, had representatives from the towns on that group who voted with all of us to put those things on the list. So including a representative from the Shelburne Finance Committee was on that committee. So to say that, you know, we got those things in there and kind of slipped them in and nobody noticed, and that's just not how it happened. It was a multi-town, multi-school committee member group. We looked very carefully at the items that needed to be addressed, and we chose those that were the most pressing to get addressed. And that's how it happened. So it wasn't like they were slipped in and nobody noticed it, and now you know, that can happen again.
Okay. We've kind of run, I believe, this out as far as we can. Is there anyone else that would like to ask questions or comment about this?
I have a question, is just whether or not these articles are going to the special town meeting with the recommendation of the select board and of the finance committee.
I think that's what we were trying to figure out. And whether, you know, the finance committee is going to recommend it, or is, you know, or with the recommendation of the select board, as we, you know, begin to get that pulled together, which we're going to be reviewing next. So the finance committee, you're supposed to meet at what time?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Finance, hello?
Yeah.
What time were you supposed to have your meeting?
Our next meeting?
No, because you were, Terry said you're posted for tonight. So I would assume after we get done with this, you would kind of go off and decide to make your recommendation. Or do you want to do something like that now, or have the opportunity to discuss everything and send it in? Send a memo out of what your recommendation is.
What do you want to do right now, or do you want to? We need.
I talked about doing that on the 10th. Last meeting, we talked, we would have this meeting, obviously I'm not part of the committee, but, and then,
Second was the next meeting we talked about, because the 10th, or I guess the 11th is the special town meeting.
right, when somebody had a conflict.
When are we gonna take a vote on?
You guys were,
Yeah, I'm not prepared to vote on it right this minute.
Okay. So, you know, that's completely fair and reasonable. So we would, at this point, would not have the recommendation from finance. It would be now the board to decide whether we want to recommend it now, or would we have the opportunity? We're talking about special before the town meeting. Because the 9th is Columbus Day, so we wouldn't be meeting on Columbus Day. So that's kind of where we're at. So what are the thoughts of the board to vote on it tonight, or have a brief select board meeting before the special town meeting?
The latter.
Vote on it now?
No, the latter. Have another meeting, the half hour or whatever before. I wouldn't want to vote on it without the finance committee weighing in. This is all about the numbers.
I guess my question to the finance committee is, if this issue of the wording around maintenance and capital were not on the table, would you be supporting the articles as they're being brought forward, which are for a different purpose about the foundational counting of enrollment?
That's hard to say, because we don't know what other changes there may be in that document without having a good red line.
Okay.
We don't, what other changes are there in there we haven't found yet?
So you're waiting for a red line document before you can take a position on this issue?
Waiting since last April.
Okay.
Martha, is that something you could provide or send to the finance committee?
They have a red line version. It did not redline this word, which I guess makes the entire thing suspect. To absolutely give you a red line with every single period and comma and in the 11 pages that you will have would be another. I can try to do that, whether it will be in time for you to have it. I will do the best I can.
The legal document.
It is not a legal document. It is a document that I put together for the benefit of the towns so that they wouldn't have to go through the whole thing. I did not, I can tell you, I did not purposefully not put in anything. To the best of my knowledge, there is nothing else in this document that is different, that has not been redlined. And I know you don't trust that, and that's fine, but that's the case. And I will do the best I can to give you a complete and total red line. But I think you'll find that more confusing than what you have. I'm happy to try.
So I guess, Bob, my question to the finance committee still remains, if you were not to find any other typos or changes or mistakes or that are not to your liking, I'm asking you to give us your recommendation on the purpose of these articles, which is to change the way that we count students. Are you in favor of that or not?
We're not prepared to answer that question.
Okay. And I guess I have the same question to the select board. Are you in favor of that intent of the articles or not? And are you prepared to vote on that tonight, or do you want to wait for the finance committee to make sure there are no other sneaky things happening here?
I've already weighed in.
Bob?
I'm kind of in the position with Rick as to wanting to look at it just a little more and deal with it on a select board meeting just before a town meeting. My brain's kind of getting a little foggy on everything that we've been talking about for the past 45 minutes. And I need a little time to digest it. Chemo brain is a thing, and I'm doing my best to keep it all focused together.
I just wanted to get clear on what we're doing here tonight, but I guess we have the answer to that question.
Okay, any other thoughts?
May I ask a quick question?
Sure, Willow.
Can I just ask, because there'll be more time now taken to review and to think about the recommendation, I'm just thinking about process and wondering how communication then works between the towns and the school committee once those decisions are made, especially if they're close to town meeting. I would love to actually be in the meetings just to listen and or to answer questions as well. So as you're moving through that, I'd just love to make sure that to understand how that communication would work.
Decisions that would come before, or responses like finance committee would be making would be sent to Terry, and she would disseminate the information out to us as to their thinking. because ours would be before the special town meeting. It would be probably like a hey, this is what happened at our special, well, I don't want to say special town meeting, but at our select board meeting. And you certainly be able to attend those meetings. When is finance again meeting?
I think they said the 10th.
Finance, is that correct?
That's not correct. That's the day before the meeting, the town meeting.
Oh.
It could be the
Yeah,
next-
but when are you meeting next to talk about and making a decision?
Here's my agenda.
10-2
10-2.
is what we have scheduled. We've not decided whether we're
We
going to.
haven't posted the agenda yet, but I need one on.
Right.
But it sounds like that should be on the agenda when you post it.
It's gonna have to, you know.
It is.
We have that meeting.
Bob, I will forward Willow a copy of our agenda once it's set for the evening of the
Okay.
special town meeting.
All right, thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So does that kind of put everybody in a place where we're good for this evening?
Yeah, Bob, were you talking about having a special select board meeting on the 10th or one on the 11th?
Rick had suggested the 11th before the town meeting. We could do something on the 10th if that's your desire, which would give a little bit more ability to do a notice to the school committee.
It's good with me.
I'm okay
Okay.
with that.
All right, so we just have to figure out when. Andrew, you work until what, 4:30?
I can meet at 4:30.
Or do you want to do it later?
5:30 would be fine too.
Rick, what's good for you?
I'm easy peasy. 5:30 is our regular.
Yep. If we stick to then the 10th at our normal 5:30 start time, I think that would work. Terry, any thoughts?
That will be fine.
Okay. So with all that, I don't believe there's going to be any motions at this point, and we'll just table this discussion until 10:10 at 5:30.
10-10.
Thoughts, concerns, disagreements, agreements?
I guess my only concern is if we're not bringing a united select board finance committee recommendation of these articles to a special town meeting, it starts to call into question whether we should be doing this at a special town meeting. And my wish would be that we bring a recommendation for these articles, but we'll see what happens.
All that would be determined on the 10th,
Yeah.
if it's united or not, based on what finance does and what we've decided to do.
Bob, if I could, one more.
Yep.
I would just, I would love on special town meeting day, if you guys are willing to, because we're gonna be the lighting thing will come up first. There is quite a push on the lighting, and I assume there will be quite a few people there. If there was any chance that you guys could recommend that people stick around for the other articles, that would be fabulous. It's just kind of as an intro to things. You know, kind of, I know a lot of people are here for the lighting, just want to let you know there's some important school articles coming up. If you don't mind staying through, because I know sometimes people tend to come to these things and phase out once they're done with what they're interested in, and no. So I would love an intro like that if you guys don't mind.
Um,
Spring, right?
I know the present agreement that we are kind of come up with from the select board and energy committee was that we were going to either pass over this article or lay on the table. There's a definition that works better for either one of those. And then continue that discussion at annual. So I hope there wouldn't be much discussion, but I can't, like anything, you can't predict what happens at town meeting. If you try to, it's going to go opposite of what you had completely thought. But yes, I mean, that's something we've easily done that we can ask, like, hey, this was the headliner, but the flip side of the record is, just as important.
Thank you.
So any other thoughts or such, or can we move on?
Are there any other further thoughts from the school representatives or not? I think everybody else has spoken.
Jim, you had something? Okay, hearing nothing much.
No, thank you for hearing us out, and we hope we can get all of this resolved. I appreciate your attention.
Yep. No problem, Martha. Thank you for coming in and being able to, handle and wander through all these questions that came before and looking for clarification. So with that said, I guess we just wait till the 10th and then see what happens on the 11th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening and keep up the good work for advocating for our school kids and moving them forward.
Yes.
All right. So the next article of business is review of the special town meeting warrant with finance committee and moderator. Is Roland here?
Oh, there should just be one out there.
Yeah, I don't see Roland. Terry, did you ever hear from him?
He was invited. I don't think he ever responded. I told him, I mean, they're fairly straightforward articles. So if he had any questions, he was more than welcome to attend.
Okay. So with that, finance is kind of, when we've reviewed the Article 2, almost to infinita at this point. Is there anything else we want to say about that in terms of review of the Mohawk proposal?
No.
All right, hearing none. We go back now to, let's see, is there an Article 3 or is there just a two article warrant, Terry?
There's Article 1 through 4. 2 through 4 are school district agreement related.
Okay. I'm kind of flipping through all these and seeing where I land. Is there anything after 4?
No.
Oh, outside of when counting 5. Thou shalt count to 3. Thou shalt not count to 2. Hopefully a couple people got that reference. So all that said, I think we're back on to then Article 1 about the street lights and the petition that was presented for us. It was my understanding at the last meeting, or with the well, also was at the last meeting, I believe, the Energy Committee had thought about bringing another article forward, but we were kind of asked that that would not be the case. And So where do we stand with that? Is there, because we were gonna bring God. We were going to bring the Article 1 up and then asked it to be, like I said, table or pass over. Thoughts, gentlemen, or, do we allow discussion on the article and vote it? Because we did have the agreement with the Energy Committee that we would pass over it and bring it to annual.
I see no reason to change that from our previous discussion with them and get it to the annual where it belongs. I think we unanimously, including Andrew and yourself, agreed that the annual meeting is where it should be discussed.
All right. Andrew?
Yes, I agree.
All right. Finance Committee, do you have any questions about Article 1 and the plan that we have come up with in conjunction with the Energy Committee?
No.
All right. So I think that concludes the review of the special town meeting warrant. Is there any other ones that want to be talked about, or are we good?
Good with me.
All right. Finance?
What was the question?
I didn't get a question. What was the question about?
Do you have any other thoughts you'd like to provide or concerns about the special town meeting warrant? Or are we good at the present stance at this point?
We're good.
All right. So the appointments at this point have been completed, which would move us back to old business and working on streetlights, appointment of members to the streetlight committee. Rick and I seem to be on the same page for members. Andrew was, talking about
But I do have one other question about membership on this committee.
Yep.
And that goes back to you, which is, are you statutorily allowed to serve on this committee?
And Terry?
I seem to recall being ejected from a committee recently or two.
I believe that you cannot serve on a committee that falls under the supervision of the select board. That was the ruling.
So would that mean we are supervising that committee, or they're acting independently?
Well, if the board appoints them, they're basically operating under the board's supervision.
Okay, good point on catching that, Andrew.
So I think if that were the case, then we have 5 nominees who have nominated themselves to serve on this committee.
That would be a member of the Finance Committee, John Walsh, Jeff Bettner, Doug Engel, and Lori Wheeler.
Okay. Thoughts, concerns, or does that seem appropriate?
I'm fine going ahead with that group.
I am as well.
Okay. So hearing that,
We have
is there a
somebody from
motion?
the finance committee who has signed up for this.
Not as of yet, I don't believe. I think that was on there. They were going to discuss it, which member
Yeah.
would
Oh,
represent.
okay. I was going to say if we did, we could appoint them all tonight, but maybe we can just appoint 4 out of 5 and take
Well,
their
it would-
recommend.
It would be the finance chair or his or her representative.
Oh,
would
okay,
be
so
how
we
it
could
could
make
be.
that appointment then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to make a motion to that effect, Bob?
Yes, please.
All right, I would move that the select board appoint a LED review committee made up of the chair of the finance committee or their designate on the finance committee, and also to be made up of appointments of John Walsh, Jeff Bettner, Doug Engel, and Lori Wheeler.
I would suggest that you mentioned the LED committee and no reference to streetlight. I think.
Okay,
Let's change the
streetlights.
word streetlights. LED.
That's great.
streetlight.
I'm friendly to that. Yes, the streetlight committees. That's
There you
fine.
go. I'd second.
Motion's
I
been made.
only said
Yeah.
LEDs because we're in the land of LEDs no matter what we do. So.
True. Motion's been made and seconded to appoint the 5 as listed to the Streetlight Committee for review and recommendation. Is there further discussion?
No.
All right, hearing none, we call this matter to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself is aye. I declare the motion passed unanimously. All right. Item F under
Oh,
old business.
Excuse me, Bob.
Yo, go for it.
Part of this discussion is to accept the proposal that was submitted by Real Term Energy. I did circulate it to each of you and members of the Energy Committee for review.
Yes, I did look at that, and thank you for bringing it up.
Oh yeah, that was the second half of the agenda item.
Yes.
I've reviewed it and it looks favorable to me.
I agree.
All right, so is there a motion to accept the proposal by
Real Term Energy.
Real Term Energy? Yes, thank you.
Sure, I'll move that we accept the proposal.
And I will second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the proposal that was presented by Real Term Energy. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion passes unanimously. Anything else that I missed in regards to that, Terry?
No, thank you.
No, no issues. All right, now moving on to item F. Joe Giard's transfer station intend to repropose additional staffing for that and the free store. Presently, we have Joe covering hours for Joe, the highway department Joe, and going up to the transfer station for 3 and then covering 3 to 4. There was a concern brought forth about a pay issue regarding overtime of a half an hour that was occurred due to him covering it. Mark is looking for clarification on start time for Joe to come in. Would it be have him come in for 11 and then still go home at 7, but usually he takes the town truck and takes, so there's an opportunity then to drive back and kind of putting at risk or rather continuing to allow him the half hour to drive back, punch out, and go home. So that was one of Mark's concerns before we go much further. Thoughts?
Well, Bob, I was the one who raised the overtime question, which I just saw after repeatedly signing warrants and seeing it showing up, and I'm wondering, why is there a half hour of overtime for the transfer station when this is a regularly occurring thing that typically we pay overtime for kind of extraordinary events that cannot be planned for, like snowstorms. And, you know, it seems like this is something that we can plan out and arrange if we're using regular highway department hours to cover. It doesn't need to be an overtime event, in my view. But you know, that's just a matter of Mark scheduling the hours appropriately. But maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. And
No.
maybe this is all moot if we're going to change it with the hiring of additional help. I don't know.
It would certainly become moot if we were able to hire somebody for there. But Mark was just looking for clarification so Joe would understand and be able to.
I think Mark just needs to designate Joe's hours as regular hours so that he can do this job.
That's why I brought it before, so we can get the opinion of the board and we get that to Mark. Rick?
Yeah, I see no reason it couldn't be a scheduling correction, and we're looking at adding this amount, and that solution would work. We talked about if it didn't, because originally it was for 15 hours, I believe, and now we cut it back. If it turns out that that's not enough hours through scheduling with the second Joe, then we can deal with that when that ball comes along. But for now, I would think Mark could schedule things to eliminate a half hour of overtime and make it work.
All right. Is that a vote or is that just a consensus, Terry?
Well, as I explained to Andrew, it's kind of a fine balance. You're taking a highway employee off the highway crew to go to the transfer station and finish out the day. Then at the end of the day, he has to close everything up, count the money, go to the bank, make the deposit, and then leave the deposit slips with the treasurer. So you either end the highway day a half hour earlier to accommodate the half hour longer at the end. I honestly didn't think a half hour overtime was a lot, given that this employee has stepped up to the plate repeatedly to cover the transfer station.
No, I guess, Terry, I'm just trying to understand it, because my sense is if we're asking him to do this extra time that's taking him beyond his normally scheduled day, why doesn't Mark just move his day up half an hour on the other end?
I would have thought Mark would have needed him for the highway. We only have 4 highway guys. So if he's leaving every Tuesday to go to the transfer station early, that creates a shortage on the highway crew. So I'm hoping the next step here is that if we do advertise for another part-time person, this would eliminate this problem.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I'm eager to see us not have to patch things around like that, but it just struck me as this is just a scheduling issue that doesn't seem like it needs to rise to the level of overtime. But you know, if Mark is using all of his time for the highway and then needs an extra half hour, then yes, that's an overtime request. But that was not my impression.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the transfer station closes at 7 on a Tuesday. So it is a big ask for a highway employee to stay on till 7:30 to finish out the day.
I didn't appreciate that. Bob, you had some concern previously about when the snow hits and drivers. Was that alleviated when you spoke to Mark, or?
No, I mean, last year, and I agree with Mark, it's like once it gets to when snow flies, it would be better to have Joe back on the regular highway hours so they can coordinate sanding and things like that while everyone's on duty. And if it's a morning storm, he can come in and do his route and not have that route, trying to be covered by one of the other guys if it happens on a Tuesday, and have him just come in for 11:30. So we last year ended the practice and we closed the transfer station early on Tuesdays. We closed it at 3, didn't we, Terry?
I want to say 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about it 4. And we put up the sign, transfer station be closing on Tuesdays at 4 due to staffing or something. And there was a lot of feedback saying that a lot of people like the going to 7, given that they get out of work and they're able to then go to the transfer station. With that, that's why we're hoping that we can get somebody via advertising for the position and to alleviate that problem altogether. So it's just a matter of, when we have the ability to do that.
It sounds like we should pursue that perhaps then. The more I hear about how it's happened last year and so on, maybe we should advertise the position and take that stress off of the highway department. We're looking at money that's there, right? When we cut it back to the potential of maximum of 4 hours on each of the 2 days.
Correct.
I don't know. I think I might be in favor of putting an ad out and see what happens. And appreciate the gracious support of Mark and his staff member there to help us in the interim.
I'm fine with that.
Is there a motion to advertise for the transportation position?
Yes, well, Rick, you just stated it, so why don't you move it?
Yeah, I think given the looming winter weather, that, to ask this fella to plow his route and stay there till 7 o'clock and then have to go to the bank, et cetera, I think that's a big ask, is right, Terry. So I would make a motion that we advertise for part-time help at the transfer station.
For the 8 hours that we discussed, yeah.
4 and 4.
8 hours during pay period, 4 hours Tuesday, 4 hours the following Tuesday.
Oh, I thought he wanted it. It's only Tuesday he wanted help?
Correct.
Not Saturday? Okay.
Correct.
Perfect.
So 8 hours per pay period is what we're talking about, Bob.
Yep.
Okay. I thought we were referring to what Joe is doing now, as opposed to advertising for the position. I apologize for that. So 8 hours per week. Yes, that was the agreement. And whether he needs more on Tuesday or Saturday, that can be worked out with Joe Giard regarding, what works best.
So we're talking about 8 hours a week, not, and it could be Saturday or a part on Saturday, part on Tuesday, whatever Joe decides.
Correct.
Okay.
So 8 hours a week is 16 hours of pay period then.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And is that budgeted for, Terry?
It's not budgeted for, but as I mentioned at our last meeting, at the end of the fiscal year, we had $14,800 remaining in that account. So it is possible that we could, given that we're well into the fiscal year, that we could afford that, providing there's no big unforeseen expenses.
Okay. Well, I'll second that motion then.
Motion's made and seconded to go for advertising for the transfer station part-time position. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I call this matter to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Very good. I'm aye as well. Motion carries unanimously. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to jump to new business because I have information about item G that's important. But I have to attend to my ileostomy. It's giving me some grief at the moment.
Okay.
So if you could do that, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
I was going to suggest we table item G until our next, actually not the meeting prior to the special town meeting, but the following one after that. Move item G to that, please.
Well, we have something that came up that's a little pressing.
Right, I want to deal with that.
Regarding 112 property?
No,
Yes.
I want to put that off for
No.
two meetings.
Go ahead, Bob.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, item A under new business, I'll ask that we pass over. I thought the bid opening was September 18th, but it's in fact on the 27th. So that will be added to our next agenda on the 23rd. Or actually, I'll probably add it to the October 10th agenda.
Okay.
And then item B, Andrew, do you want to talk about the pocket park?
Just only that the report that I gave at the front of the end of the meeting is that the likelihood is that I mean, I don't have the details to bring forward yet about cost estimates for this tree moving, but if we, nor do I have anything nailed down yet from the bridge committee or the water district about the exact timeline of when they need things taken off the bridge, because there's some possibility that we could do it this fall or we could do it next spring. But some of that depends on when is a good time to move trees and plants. Fall may be better for that. I don't, there's a lot of moving parts here. But I was going to say it would be helpful to, if we are in agreement, to allocate the $10,000 of ARPA funds toward this project, to approve that at this meeting or the next one, so that we can have that ready should we decide to approve these projects that may come up sooner than later, in say end of October or November. They're not imminent, but they're coming soon, if we decide to go forward in that direction. I mean, we could potentially decide not to deal with these bridge trees, but maybe just, if we purchase trees for the pocket park, we could just purchase trees from a nursery. So there's still, options out there to explore, and pros and cons and cost estimates to get and all that. So a lot of that stuff will be coming in this coming week as I meet with the arborist and these, the bridge folks and others, Jim Richardson. But that's kind of where we are at the moment. And, the ARPA funds would provide us with some flexibility for how to respond to those opportunities.
I'm not a big fan of assigning things in advance when it could be this, it could be that, it could be another thing. Let's wait and see what it fleshes out. If you say you'll be getting more of that information in the coming week, how tough can it be to wait a bit, especially in deference to Bob this evening? I think we shouldn't be pushing.
Yeah, I'm not advocating that we have to rush into it either. I'm just saying that it's something that the timeline is shortening on. So we will need to address these things at probably in October.
Okay.
I'll add it to the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah.
10-10.
Yeah, that's for yeah. So did you talk about the 112 property, Terry?
No.
No.
Okay, so on part of one of the liabilities in regards to, the tax title, we presently hold the properties on the Main Street. Back last week, a large tree came down on a house, the last house now that's in line just before we got into our properties. And the property owner is claiming that it's on our land and is seeking assistance in regards to insurance. And both Mark and I have looked at what the tree, it is a large tree. They did come down and did damage the roof. But looking at our assessor maps, which is the only thing we had to go by, both Mark and I agree that this tree is very close to the line, and we're not comfortable at this point of saying, yes, it's our tree or not, given if we have shown a pin for the back portion of her property, or get out a tape measure, because there is some defining lines, that or measurements that we could locate it. The property owner was supposed to provide us with a plot plan, which would have more detail in regards to the location of her property versus now our property. And we still have not received that. And Terry had sent a nudge like, hey, don't forget about this. So that's why, it is part of we own town property, and some of the things that can come up secondary to owning it is, claims against the town, insurance for situations like this. So am I missing anything, Terry?
No, I'll reach out to the property owner again tomorrow and see if she can scan. She was going to go home, try to find the plot plan and scan it to me. There is a small possibility that the tree belongs to a landowner above on the hill, but until we know where the boundaries are, it hit both their home and crushed a camper when it came down.
Does that hillside go up to the cemetery?
This
No.
is
No.
this is near Frankton Road. It's nowhere near the cemetery.
Okay.
It's the two houses that we had condemned and had torn down. That's the property that we own in that area. And it abuts this, the property owner where the tree came down.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I somehow got my geography muddled. Okay.
So the ball's in her court, right, at this point then?
I will definitely follow up. In the absence of some sort of property line markers, I wouldn't have a real concrete way of determining whose tree that is.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate.
Well, it would seem like it would be incumbent on her to bring that information forward if she's wanting to make a claim of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not the case? I mean, we're not the ones that need to go out and do that research, are we?
No, I wanted to be responsive to her call. And she said she would provide me the information, and I'm just waiting on that. I just wanted the board to be aware of what's happening.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of part of why I wanted to talk about that, to make you folks aware. Is there any other old business? Ariane, did we discover anything, or did we talk about new business, or do we continue to, or do we move on to new business, Terry?
We passed over item A until bids are received on September 27th. And item B will come up at another agenda when Andrew has some concrete idea of costs.
All right. Being that said, is there any other new business? Hearing none, is there any other business outside of the next meeting, which would be October 9th, Columbus Day? We have moved that meeting to October 10th. So is there any other business in that terms?
No.
All right, correspondence seems to be blank there. At this point, we enter into public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment? Going once, going twice. So
I do, sorry.
You got it in just at the right minute. Go ahead, John.
All right, so I just want to bring up the fact that I would like you all to start considering what has to be done at the Cowell Gym in regards to deferred maintenance. It is, having spent the last 2 months pretty much there quite a bit, I'm very concerned about the outside condition of the building, the painting. I'm concerned about holes that have been filled in from the inside, but not the outside. The attic has materials that have been stored there for probably 50 years that should be looked at and could potentially become a fire hazard at some point up there. In the main basement area where the old teen center used to be, there are 3 electric panels. Some appear to have wires that don't seem to be connected to anything. I could not tell whether they're live or not, but I think it needs to at least start a discussion as to what is going to be needed in the future. If we continue to defer this maintenance, we're really putting the historic building at risk. And I think it's important that at least it get on your budget discussions of whether or not to start setting aside money to start addressing those things. But in fact, there's quite a lot of things that need to really be looked at. And that was my comment.
And I have a question back to you, which we should have brought up a little later back under old business. Would you be willing to be chair for the streetlight committee?
Bob, what do you have against me?
I have nothing against you. It shows my confidence in you, not against you.
I would consider it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But I think that should be a vote at the first organizational meeting of the committee, not a chair, a decision by you all from that perspective.
Valid, yes. So going back to that, continuing on, is there one last chance for public comment? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
For a second? Motion is made for adjournment, adjournment. No discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We are now adjourned.